Today we're going to be talking about systems of linear equations word problems. So there's 4 general steps to these. The first one is to read the word problem, define the variables and solve, or write a system of equations. We're going to solve the system using the appropriate methods, so graphing, substitution, or elimination. Typically, you're not going to use graphing, but substitution or elimination would be your best bets. Third step is to write the solution as an ordered pair, and remember those need to be in alphabetical order. And then we're going to lastly write a sentence to answer the question. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of word problems here. So the first one, the sum of two numbers is 12. Their difference is 4. Find the numbers. So what we want to make sure we're doing is reading that and figuring out what two things, since we ultimately have two variables, what two things we're going to be looking for. Okay? So the sum of two numbers. Do I have any idea what those two numbers are? No. So that means that our variables are going to be x equals the first number and y equals the second number. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the first number is bigger than the second number or anything like that. We just have two numbers. So we have the first number and we have the second number. The sum of those two numbers is 12. Well, sum means addition, and we're taking those two variables. We're adding those, and that should equal 12. Their difference, meaning the difference of the two numbers, x and y, is 4. So difference means subtraction. So we have x minus y equals 4, and there's our system. Okay? We need to now solve this to figure out what the answer is, what the two numbers are. So we're going to look here. What method would we use to solve this? Well, the x's, the y's, the equal signs, and the numbers, they're all lined up. That means that elimination is going to be our best bet. And here, the x's have the same coefficient, but it's not one positive, one negative. So let's look at the y's here. The y's do have the same coefficient, and they are one positive, one negative. So we're ready to just eliminate these by adding them together. So x plus x is 2x. Y plus a negative y, those eliminate. And 12 plus 4 is 16. So we're going to divide by 2, and x is going to equal 8. That means our first number here is 8. So next thing is take that 8 and substitute it back in for one of the original equations. Let's choose the first one. So we have 8 plus y equals 12. When we subtract 8 on both sides, we get y equals 4. So that means that our solution in alphabetical order is 8, 4. And we need to write a sentence for that. So the question said find the numbers. So we could just say the numbers are 8 and 4. And so that would be our answer. Okay, and you could check that as well. If you take 8 and 4 and you add them together, you get 12. If you take 8 and you subtract 4 from it, the difference is 4. Okay, so that works out. All right, let's take a look at one more here. So we have Deshawn sold 10 bags of windflower bulbs and 12 bags of daffodil bulbs for a total of $380. Shayna sold 6 bags of windflower bulbs and 8 bags of daffodil bulbs for a total of $244. What is the cost each of 1 bag of windflower bulbs and 1 bag of daffodil bulbs? So we have to figure out what the heck we've got going on. Okay, it does ask us the cost of 1 bag of windflower bulbs and 1 bag of daffodil bulbs. So that means that our variables are going to be windflower bulbs and daffodil bulbs. So it doesn't really matter what letter you use. You can use x and y for these different things. Another common way people name their variables is by the first letter of it. So w is the cost of windflower bulbs, and d equals cost of daffodil bulbs. Okay, so that's one way of naming these things. All right, so now let's actually write sentences, write our equations based on the sentences. So we have Deshaun, information about what he did, so that's going to give us one equation, and Shayna's information is going to give us the other. So Deshaun sold 10 bags of windflower bulbs. So we're going to take that 10 and multiply it by the cost of however many, whatever the windflower bulbs are. And he bought 12 bags of daffodil bulbs. So we're going to add those two costs together, and that gives us his total of $380. We're going to do the same thing with Shayna. So she sold 6 bags of windflower bulbs and 8 bags of daffodil bulbs for a total of $244. So there's our system, and we're going to work on solving that. Now, what was it set up for? Substitution, elimination, graphing, not really so easy with this. You could if you wanted. Not my suggestion, but you could. So here, these are all lined up, so we're ready for elimination. And we have to decide if we want to eliminate the W's or the D's. So is there an easy way to get from 6 to 10? No, not really. And 8 to 12? No, not really. So that means we are going to have to multiply both equations by something. So let's go ahead and eliminate the W's. That number seems to be a little bit easier because I know that 6 and 10, I could multiply those things across. Now you can work on multiplying to get the least common multiple between those two things, or you can just do the switch where you're taking the bottom coefficient and bringing it up and the top coefficient and bringing it down. Now that's going to give you bigger numbers, but that's still possible to do. And that's going to make both of those be positive 60W, so we're going to make one of them negative. So let's make the 10 be negative. It doesn't matter. So you could have also multiplied those equations to get them to be a coefficient of 30 would also be something that would work for those numbers that are here, but we can just go with this. So we're going to distribute in, and so 60W plus 72D is going to equal 2,280 when we multiply that 6 into everything. And when we multiply the negative 10 in, we get negative 60W minus 80D equals negative 2,440. All right, so now we're going to add those equations together. And our W's are going to eliminate because 60 plus negative 60 is 0. Those eliminate. 72D plus a negative 80D is negative 8D. And 2,280 plus a negative 2,440 is going to give us a negative 160. Dividing both sides by negative 8. We get that D equals 20. So let's check and make sure that that actually makes a little bit of sense here. Yeah, so we're talking about the cost of things for our two variables, so it would make no sense at all if we ended up with a negative answer there. So if you get a negative answer for some of these word problems, it may not make sense at all, and you need to make sure that you're keeping track of that, okay? So now that we have what one variable equals, we're going to plug that back in to one of the equations. So let's plug it into the bottom equation. So we have 6W plus 8 times our D was 20 equals 244. So that means that 6W plus 160 is going to equal 244. And then we have our two-step equation to solve. So we're subtracting 160 and getting 6W to equal 84. Dividing both sides by 6, we get that W equals 14. So again, that answer makes sense based on the situation that we're given here. Okay, so we're going to write our answer as an ordered pair. And as we're doing this, this is going to be where yours might look a little different than somebody else, depending on what variables you chose. But we're going to put them in alphabetical order. That means that D would come before the W. So we're going to say 2014 is our solution to this. If you used X's and Y's, then yours would be in a different order, and that's okay. And then we have to write this in a sentence. So this 20 is the D. That stood for the cost of daffodils. So we would say daffodil bulbs cost $20, and windflower bulbs cost $14. And you could take this information and you could plug it into the calculator, or you can plug in these numbers to see if they work in both equations. When you're plugging into Desmos, though, to check these, you cannot use any variables other than x's and y's. So you just have to keep track of which one you're doing first, whether you're choosing to put x here and then y there, just to keep it in order there, or if you're doing it in alphabetical order, making w be your y and d be your x's. It doesn't matter. You just need to use x's and y's for those things. So to recap, you need to make sure that when you're doing these questions, you're reading the word problem, defining the variables, writing a system. You're going to solve that using one of our 3 methods, write the solution as an ordered pair in alphabetic order, and then write a sentence to answer the question that they've asked you.